When I hear automatic thoughts, I think CBT. Is this closely linked?
Yeah, so this is like third wave CBT,
okay,
basically. So it kind of incorporates some of those acceptance mindfulness tools. It's not only cognitive, but it's a little bit almost more spiritual and brings in those mindfulness bases.
Welcome to this special Autism Ontario webinar. My name is Matthew Lay, and as always, I will be your host. Today, we will be discussing healthy coping for caregivers using acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, strategies with Katy Albert.
I think this is a really empowering and powerful statement. But basically, when you're faced with something challenging, we basically have 4 options. We can leave the situation, and being a parent, that's not on the table.
No.
Right? We can stay and change what can be changed and work within it, right? There's therapies, there's getting support, there's things that we can do. We can stay and accept what can't be changed and live by our values, or we can stay and give up or do things that make it worse. This idea is really about, I may struggle and it may be hard, but I'm going to approach this with my values in mind.
Talk to me about how we get reconnected with our values and what that looks like.
I love that question. I think giving it some thought.
Yeah.
And a lot of your values translate into the kind of family you want to have and the way you want to parent. But a lot of values actually transcend your identity as a parent or the way you were before you were a parent. You could value cooperation and generosity and authenticity and, joy and creativity or nature, all of these things we bring these things into our parenting. And so a lot of us lose part of our identity when we become a parent. I know that I had that experience for sure. And just taking some time to think about what kind of life are you trying to build for yourself and for your family? Who do you want to show up as in this world? How do you want to treat yourself? How do you want to treat others? Values are not outcomes. It's not being successful or being the best parent ever. I value patience, and I'm not always patient, but I value it. Right.
If you're working within the ACT framework, is this something that is done with a professional?
It can be.
It can be?
Yes,
okay.
It can be. There's great books on ACT. Some of those will be in the resource section for sure. There's some great self-help books. There's some great books for clinicians on ACT. There's some great trainings on ACT. But I think it's honestly, I think one of the things that's beneficial about this is it can be pretty simple.
Yeah.
In it's accepting my reactions, choosing valued direction and taking action. And I think that you could do many sessions with a therapist on ACT, or you could even just know that and think about your values, and that could be transformative. So with any form of therapy, you can go really deep, but you can also just take those core principles and start using them right away.
Let's assume that we've established what those values are.
Yeah.
Now we have to turn that into the actions we're going to take, correct? So talk to me about that process.
So we have to notice how we're feeling, right?
Right.
And be able to see our values, even while we are consumed with grief, anger, guilt, frustration, and being able to regulate those emotions is really important. Sometimes we know outside of the moment how we would want to be able to show up, but then when we are having big emotions, it's really hard. So ACT is really about learning to respond and relate almost differently to those emotions too. If you think of, for example, guilt as just being a really important reminder about your values versus this horrible thing that you have to then beat yourself up about and feel tons of shame around and get stuck in for the rest of the night. When I experience guilt now, I just say, hey, have I betrayed one of my values? Oh, I did. Oh, thank you so much, guilt. I'm so glad you showed up to remind me that this isn't how I want to do this. Great. Okay, you can go now.
Yeah.
I have some action to take now versus getting stuck in it and suffering in that guilt.
Right.
So if you can thank your guilt, this is such an ACT thing. It's responding flexibly to the emotion of guilt versus resisting it versus hating it versus struggling with it. I can actually be grateful for my guilt because it's so useful to me and I can love it.
Yeah.
And then it can serve its purpose and then I can let it go. So this is really about, this process too is around, we are never going to be perfect.
No.
You may value patience. You may value being a strong advocate. You may value neurodiversity and celebrating, your child's differences. And you will not show up perfectly 100% of the time. And part of this is just about reflection. How did I do? Is there anything I'd want to change? Am I proud of how I handled this? If I am, amazing, pat on the back. If I'm not, okay, what do I want?